Hello, welcome to Northwest Wild Herbs and Foods. Today I'm going to show you how to make a tincture from dry plant material the folk method way. Right now I am visiting Arizona and I collected Eucalyptus globulus, which is eucalyptus. There's a bunch of different species of this tree, but they are all very similar, of course, obviously in their smell, the bark that peels away, that's a beautiful array of blues and whites, creams and pinks. And the leaves have, of course, the distinct eucalyptus smell. The leaves of eucalyptus are antibacterial, and it's just a good general herb for keeping bad bacteria in check. So it'll get rid of your bacterial infections inside and outside of your body. And it's really great for stomach and intestinal parasites. It is also an astringent, which means that it tightens and tones tissues. And it's just a good general astringent. So you can use it externally, internally. It'll help with healing and it'll help keep the integrity of your tissues intact. So first, after you collect your plant material, wash it. In this case, I forgot to wash it after I collected the leaves when they were fresh, and I got really busy. So I let them dry, hanging up. Now I washed them, and I can do this because these leaves are very, very hardy. You really couldn't do that with, say, like flowers or really most plants, because most plant material, because it's just too delicate. But in this case, the leaves are very hardy, they're kind of leathery, very stiff, and so I was able to wash them easily. When you're harvesting plants, you always want to be very mindful of possible contaminants in the area. Eucalyptus leaves, you want to harvest the young, fresh ones that are very green. So I actually was able to gather a lot of really young and fresh ones. The older ones have some more irritating chemical compounds in them that can just cause a little bit of an upset stomach. You'd be drinking the tea and taking a lot of it to have an upset stomach. But in this case, we're making a tincture, so we should be fine with some bigger leaves in there. Next, you want to break up your plant material as much as possible. You can also use a coffee grinder to really get your herbs into tiny pieces. You can do a powder. A powder is not a big deal, but a powder does make it harder to strain, to separate the herb from the liquid when you're done. So I normally don't use powdered herbs, but it's totally fine if you're willing to go the extra mile to strain it. You probably would have to use maybe like a coffee filter or two to let it soak through to really get the sediment out. Here you can crush them if it's delicate plant material, and you can also put them in the blender if you're willing to sanitize your blender beforehand. Nope, I am going the blender route. As I was cutting these up, I was just like, this is not working. So here's what we're gonna do. I have a sanitized jar. I always sanitize a bunch of jars at the same time so that I have them on hand so I can just grab them real quick. So it's nice to have all the stuff ready to go so that when you do finally get the chance to harvest a plant, you can just go home, make the tincture, or even make it outside with the plant that you're harvesting. In this case, I'm using vodka. I'm gonna fill my jar up so that I know how much vodka to use in my blender. Take into account the fact that we're gonna have plant material in there, so I'm gonna start out with this. Should be good enough. Vodka is about 40% alcohol, and it's the most widely used general alcohol for making tinctures. And it serves its purpose in this folk method. And here we go, I blended this. This is going to be different because usually I fill the jar completely full of herb first. So I'm gonna do my best to make sure that it gets as tamped full of plant material as possible. The size of jar that you use is going to depend on how much plant material you can harvest. Sometimes you can only get a little bit, depending on the circumstances. And this was a huge giant tree and there were like 10 of them. So I could harvest as much as I wanted to, and there were a bunch of young leaves too. So in this case, I wasn't too worried about it. Fill your jar to the very top. What's best is no air bubbles at all. That is what is best. So I let it get messy. I let it overflow. I let my tincture sit for a couple of hours. I check it later in the day for air bubbles that have risen and created an air pocket at the top. And then I top it off with more alcohol and cap it again. And then usually I'll check it, especially if it's an herb that is catching a lot of air bubbles. I'll check it maybe, a couple days later, or 1 day later, 2 days later, a couple of times if necessary. Like especially, I just did mullein, like 8 months ago, and it needed lots of help getting the air bubbles out. I did a lot of work to get the air bubbles out of that one. Organic alcohol is always better. Homemade is totally best, absolutely best. I don't know very many people who make their own alcohol though, and I'm not quite at that stage yet, but that's definitely a goal. We're gonna let this tincture macerate for 2 moon cycles, and macerate means extract. So we're gonna let it extract for 2 moon cycles. You can do a minimum of 1. My favorite is 2. You'll hear from different herbalists, you'll hear, of course, a lot of different methods. And you can do as long as, I'm not even joking, like you could do a year. Say you forget about it for a year, literally, and then you come back to it and it's been stored in a cool, dry place, out of light. You can press it and keep your tincture. I have done that before, and the medicine is good. It's intact. It hasn't gone bad at all. The great thing about tinctures is that they truly can last almost indefinitely if they're stored out of light in a cool and dry place. This tincture, put it somewhere where you will remember it. I put my tinctures by my coffee because I drink coffee every day. So whenever I, go up to get my coffee, I just shake all of my tinctures. And you want to shake it every single day. It's called agitation. And we agitate to keep the medicine extracting. You don't want things to get stagnant in there. It'll just kind of sit around and not do as much extracting. So shake it every day, and you can just meditate on how you're excited about your medicine, you're thankful to the plant and the earth for providing this for us. Now I'm going to top it off because there's air bubbles in there. Okay, great. After you finish putting your tincture together, label it clearly. So first put the Latin, Eucalyptus globulus in this case. Next, you can write the common name, so eucalyptus. Indicate the plant material that you used. In this case, we did young leaves, dried. If they were fresh, you would write fresh. Put folk method on there, 40%, which is the alcohol content. the location that I'm covering up, but Arizona, and the date that you tinctured it, which was 5/20/21. And then I'm actually going to add the moon phase on there so that I know exactly when I started it. You can just do the day too. It doesn't matter if your label is ghetto or fancy, but what's best is waterproof. Share a little secret with you. I just cover mine completely with packing tape. There we go. It's better when it's really flat. The surface is really flat. And we will press this in 2 months. Time to press our tincture. I have orange peel finished. Now it's time to show you how to press your tincture. Here I have orange peel. So take your tincture and pour it through your muslin bag or whatever you're using. There we are. Now if I was making this tincture for somebody else, I would set this in a colander and press it with sanitized stainless steel spoons. But since it's tincture for me and my family, to tell you the truth, I just squeeze it out with my hands. Squeeze it out to get all of the medicine. There's lots of really useful medicine still inside of the plant material. And this bag was sanitized, and this bowl I sanitized as well. The leftover plant material you can put in your compost. You can just spread out on the ground underneath some plants. This totally looks like orange juice, and it seriously smells like orange juice. I'm just using the same jar that's rinsed out and dried. And every tincture comes out different. So this one, I don't have very much liquid, and I'm wondering why. Maybe it's because the orange peel is so porous, maybe it soaked up a lot of it, even though it was fresh. But usually, this will be mostly full. So with orange peel, it's only about halfway full, and I actually could probably put this in a smaller jar, which I think I'll do later. Now I've got a label made. It says orange peel, fresh, folk method, 40% alcohol, 5/20/21, citrus sinensis, and I forgot to put the location on there, so I'll probably just add that later. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video was helpful in showing you how to make a tincture from dried plant material the folk method way, and I look forward to seeing you next time.